After one of our largest offensives began on March 8 in the Kursk direction, followed by the liberation of a giant bridgehead and the destruction of several thousand militants in less than a week, many lost sight of what was happening on other fronts, although events were no less complex. On the day when our soldiers hung the Russian flag in Sudza, while some were interrupting the news about the imminent onset of peace, military bloggers and military commanders reported on the beginning of a large-scale offensive by the armed forces of Ukraine from 4 directions. What is it? Have they already made peace? It is reported that the enemy has breached the defense on one of the key bridgeheads. 50% has been lost. The bloody failure in the DPR. On March 12, the first reports of Suji's release appeared. They published footage from the central square, in which our fighters stretched the flag of Russia and the Russian Empire. Then it became known that the enemy was trying to retreat in whole columns, not only from the city, but also from some neighboring villages directly to Sumy region. Drones, TMS and missiles were actively attacking these echelons. All this happened against the background of news about the negotiations between the United States and Ukraine in Saudi Arabia, the proposal for a 30-day truce, etc. There were also reports that the enemy was not retreating, but was allegedly coming out in an organized manner, as this was part of the agreement, which was not true. But behind this news, many have lost sight of what is happening on other fronts. A large-scale offensive by the Ukrainian armed forces. The Ukrainian armed forces launched an offensive in a number of directions at once, including Kupiansky, Svatovsky, Turetsky, and Pokrovsky. Also, according to military experts, information has appeared that in the near future, units of the Ukrainian Marine Corps will try to jump on a number of islands on the Dnieper. On the same day, military commander Yuri Kotnak reported that the enemy had introduced reserves and launched a counterattack in the direction of Berlatsky, in Volno Pole, Novoselka. On March 12, he reported that the Ukrainian armed forces had pushed our assault groups into the landings from Shevchenko. The next day, the situation became more complicated. Pokrovsko direction. The situation in the area of Shevchenko settlement has become more complicated. The enemy was able to reach the southern outskirts of the village and take control of about 50% of its territory. Our units are counterattacking. On March 14, Kotnak reported that fierce fighting was continuing on the left flank of the Pokrovsky direction. In a good location in the industrial zone. There are counterbattles in Kotlino for the northwestern outskirts. There are counterbattles south of Udakny. Our units are attacking in the area of the Saline River in the direction of Novosergievka. Zvarivo, Peskino. Our assaults are attacking, trying to reach the southeastern outskirts of Zvarivo in the area of the embankment of the former railway. Counterfighting and a dynamic situation in Shevchenko. The enemy is holding positions in the northern part of the village and is constantly trying to slip through to the southern outskirts and gain a foothold there, as it was yesterday. Our units are blocking and destroying them. Behind the enemy are the northern and northeastern suburbs. Our assaults continue to attack. According to the information of the 2 majors' military volunteers on the morning of March 15, fighting is underway in the Pokrovsky direction in the area of the settlements of Udaknoy, Kotlino, Peskino, Shevchenko, and Tarasovka. The enemy claims that the units of the Russian armed forces released from under the liberated Constantinople have been transferred to Pokrovsk to increase pressure. According to military commander Anatoly Radov, there is now, in Shevchenko, control over only half of the settlement. At the moment, the calculations of the elite special battalion of the armed forces of Ukraine, Birds of Magyar, have been destroyed near Pokrovsk. And Anton Shenikny, drone operator number 2 in the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine, was eliminated in Toretsk. The military commanders of the Russian Spring reported on the bloody failure of the Ukrainian armed forces' counteroffensive in the Toretsk direction. According to the published data, the enemy launched an attack on Toretsk from 3 directions, trying to capture the city, but thanks to the skillful and coordinated actions of the Russian fighters, this turned into a massacre for the Ukrainian armed forces. During the repulse of the attack, enemy infantry groups on NATO armored vehicles, including the Max Pro, M113 and Kozak infantry fighting vehicles, were timely detected and destroyed. The FPV operators, the Lancet UAV, the 381st Artillery Regiment, the artillery of the 102nd, 103rd and 163rd Regiments with the 174th Reconnaissance Battalion of the 150th MSD inflicted a powerful fire defeat on enemy forces on the outskirts of the city. As a result, our troops successfully thwarted the Ukrainian armed forces' counterattack, destroying a large number of personnel and up to 7 armored vehicles. This sector of the front has turned into a cemetery of unfulfilled hopes of the Ukrainian occupation forces. Screenshot from the channel Venker Kitten. According to the BelVPO Belarusian Analytical Project, there are intense clashes in the Toretsk area in the Fomica and Zabalka districts in the city itself, and counterfighting continues. For many days now, attempts by enemy assault groups to gain a foothold on the outskirts of Toretsk have been recorded for the subsequent accumulation and return of the city under their control. The command of the armed forces of Ukraine is not interested in Toretsk itself, which is a ruin, but rather in the large mines located nearby. Yes, fighting is underway, including for resources, and large mines are an important economic element. Writes Boris Razin, an expert at the Center for Military and Political Journalism. Earlier, Toretsk had already been liberated from enemy forces. The assault on one of the key cities on the Donbass front lasted 27 days, and in addition to the AFU militants there were a large number of mercenaries, the Fedpress newspaper wrote. At the same time, the enemy soldiers did not respond to all calls to drop their weapons and surrender, which led to heavy losses on his part.